to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message at the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try enforcing some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
And here it is. We're back from a weekend in Boston for episode number 426. I'm Adam Ponophobia Cogswell, joining you guys again and hosting this amazing show. Serial Box is here with me this week. Dom is as well. Santana and Marine all join me for this patch 7.5 follow-up podcast. Hello, everybody out there.
That was good. That was one of your better ones out there.
Did you write that down?
Nope.
Are you sure?
Off the top of my head.
Share your screen, please, and I will believe you. But after that...
No. I was thinking this morning, a lot of times I will be driving into work, and I'll think of I didn't think of this intro, but I'll think of something I want to talk about, and then I'll kind of run through it in my head, and then by the time I get home at the end of the day, I will have forgotten everything that I wanted to say. Because I had a really good segue piece to talk about Aatrox later on in the show, and I have no idea how I want to do that anymore. So
I could kind of see you from now on driving into work with a voice recorder and just you record that clip and then play it back to yourself occasionally throughout the day, and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. It's going to be a good bit.
I've thought about it. I spend 45 minutes in the car in the morning, and sometimes I'll talk to myself about things, or I'll run through ideas in my head so I get a better idea of how I want to talk about something later. For example, we went to PAX this weekend, and we got a bunch of interviews, and I was kind of going over what some of those games were out loud one day when I was driving into work, on Monday. Then again, I was still really hyped about going to PAX and everything. And if you guys want to see... if you want to see all those interviews, they'll be up on YouTube by the end of the week. YouTube.com/TForce Podcast. We saw a lot of awesome games. And we'll also be releasing a special general gaming episode on the T-Force proper feed sometime next week. So you guys can hear about our journey out there. Because we want to know, or we want you to know where your money is going and what we're doing to try to further the gaming scene with the money that you guys are providing us over at Patreon.com/TForce Network.
Now, Todd, you were just there by happenstance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went with some friends, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I feel bad. I didn't get to see Todd. Every time I wanted to, I'm like,
that was my follow-up. Did you guys hook up at all, or no?
I ran into Mitch for 2 seconds, and I saw Adam run away, and that was pretty much the extent of it.
You saw Chris come over to get the key that I'd forgotten to give them, so you had a chain of interactions that were incredibly brief, which was unfortunate.
Right.
Not that the interactions were brief, that they were only brief.
The problem comes down to is I want to see everybody. I really wanted to see Marine, right? But I have half an hour windows here and there, and if I haven't, and it's just adding another meeting to your schedule. Sometimes it's really hard to get to when you've packed your full day full of meetings.
Yeah, his wife is very different from mine. His wife also really wanted nachos, and so that was a problem a lot of the time in terms of what she wanted to eat, because it was not always readily available.
Just solo nachos.
Yeah,
that was just at some point she did. That's just how it works.
Just fine. But nachos.
We should have there were a lot of games we got to go check out. I know Adam went machine style on just churning out interviews. We got a bunch more come Sunday, including a little recap from me and Chris, kind of covering what all we didn't get to interview but got to see regardless. Followed up with we were able to just run people in to get a Pyre play test. Cause I was just do you guys have media slot? They're like, yeah, come on right now. It's oh, that's easy. I love this.
Yeah, we'll talk more about PAX here, and you guys will be able to hear all about that. But I know right now everyone listening wants to hear about our patch 7.5 follow-up for this week, where we are going to talk about Aatrox, Lucian, Blade of the Ruined King, Warlords, and Fervor of Battle, as well as Stoneborn Pact, because those seems to be the biggest changes come out of this last patch. Now, speaking to Aatrox specifically, I wanted to start with this conversation by talking about what makes a good champion, because Marine, you actually had a really good point in Slack the other day about Aatrox, and ultimately just about every conversation we have with you goes back to Garen, which makes me laugh. But you had mentioned that, is Aatrox really bad, or do you have to change your play style to play him? And yes, you do. But it was more of, along the lines of, hey, Garen is called bad, but if you play him like this, or Garen is good at 3 items, so how do you play around that? And that's kind of what I wanted to start with this Aatrox conversation, because I think the general consensus is that Aatrox is bad, but I keep flopping back and forth between good and bad, personally, like my opinion of him.
I mean, me personally, when I saw the initial changes, I expected him to be a lot stronger than he actually was at the time. I mean, his win rate's really low right now, but you have to also take into consideration that his play rate has more than quadrupled, because there are people who weren't familiar with the character trying to test out the new changes. I think it's too early to look at statistics and have a definite say on how good or bad he is. But the conversation was basically his poke is kind of weak, maybe his disengage isn't great, but he's really strong in a sustained fight. And I think he's somewhere between a Master Yeek type character, where you have to be really opportunistic about when you decide to fight somebody, and somebody like Trinity, who's just really, really deadly if he all-ins you with everything available to him, like all of his cooldowns, his passive, and everything. I think it's, like I said, it's too early to say if he's bad. I see a lot of the same weaknesses as between Aatrox and Garen, and I don't think Garen's that bad. I think it's just too early to say, but I'm very optimistic.
I think one thing that's interesting about this is it kind of plays to me like, and this is from seeing both Punch and Jira play Aatrox over I guess on Monday. I feel like it's kind of like Aurelion Sol, not necessarily the champion, but the amount of the time that you had to put in to figure out how to play Aurelion Sol when he was first launched meant a very low win rate, but that skyrocketed as people started to learn how to play him. I think there's a big change in the item builds and how you're supposed to play this Aatrox. It's not crazy different, but if people are going in and saying what was played before, I guess I'll keep that as my main build. It's not going to help when they've completely changed what you should be doing and where he gets his free stats from now.
See, I feel like Swain is his best comparable right now, because Swain, prior to the mid-year Mage update, was played very differently from the way he is right now. And even though Riot was really, really explicit in what you were supposed to be doing on New Swain, at least from their guidance standpoint, while everybody else figured out what you needed to do from there, people didn't read that, and they kept trying to play Swain the way he had always been played, and that just wasn't going to be successful, even though he had a lot of key similarities to the way that he was, to what he was doing. There was just the one change that really changed what, everything that you were supposed to be doing on the champion, and I kind of feel like that's what's going on with Aatrox right now, because your passive is not what you are used to it being.
Yeah,
until you wrap your head around your passive not being what it used to be, you are probably going to fail, because you're going to keep going in thinking you're Aatrox, same old, and that's going to lead to failure.
Yeah, you also sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to agree with Todd here too, because I think when we mentioned Swain, we mentioned some of these other champions. I think we still don't have enough of a sample size yet or time put in. Because remember, when we had the Assassin update this year, Katarina was the worst win rate for a while out of mid lane. And then she turns out to be one of the best mid lane picks, and then she gets nerfed a couple patches in a row. I don't think Aatrox is quite the same, because I don't think the skill cap's there for him. But I do think we're just getting an influx of players being like, oh, Aatrox got changed. Let's see how he heals. Oh, he's terrible. I'm never going to play him again. I don't think he's that bad. I think he's middle of the road right now. I think he's fine. I think he's there. He exists.
It's... Go ahead.
I was... Like I said, I keep flip-flopping back and forth on what Aatrox is, and how sometimes I watched Punch play him the other night, and I don't know the skill level of his opponent, but he walked out of that game without a single death. And he specifically said that he really liked the new passive, because the new passive allowed him to trade in lane or have windows of trading or windows of being able to deny CS, because if that passive is available, you cannot trade with Aatrox, because he obviously just pops right up, but he's also gaining a big chunk of AD and attack speed as well. And the old way of playing Aatrox was generally Tiamat and then push really hard with E all the time. Push, and, roam and do whatever it is top laners do. But you have to kind of change how you're looking at that because the damage has been lowered on a lot of those abilities in favor of gaining more AD to do more damage. And also because they've backloaded a lot of his damage through his passive. They had to remove it out of the front so you could stack that. But I watched Sean play him out of the jungle, and we had this humorous conversation about how you have to play Aatrox, because something that I don't think a lot of people realize is that every time you use an ability, you're gaining 20% of your blood well, right? And you have to, and previously, you didn't necessarily need to dive into a fight to use your ultimate. Like, you could just pop your ultimate, then dive into a fight. Yeah, that extra damage was nice, and you would likely try to do that, but now you need to be in the middle of a fight before you pop your ultimate, because every person you hit with it gives you 20% of your blood well. So you're diving in, you're pressing R, you get your passive, you're doing a ton of damage, and then you are either dying or living, and then popping back up, doing it again. So I think a lot of it just goes around that you got to change your playstyle and figure out how to use those windows to trade properly. And I think that's where you kind of go back to it's kind of like back to the Garen thing, because you can only trade on Garen if you have certain abilities available to you, rather than you just walk up and start auto-attacking the person.
On the topic of Aatrox's passive and the jungle versus top lane, I think he seems like he's geared more towards top right now. If I'm not mistaken, his passive stays refreshed once you've activated it, as long as you're in combat with the champion, right? I'm right about that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just in the jungle, like, you're not really getting that payoff for that reward. And if you're trying to proc it after you're coming out of the jungle, like in a gank, by the time it's up, like the gank's probably already been decided one way or the other. Maybe it would be really useful in those 2v2 scenarios where after you get it maybe on one target, you can switch to another. But it seems like he's really geared towards top right now. All the jungle Aatrox I've seen, including those games that Sean played, I actually watched those games afterwards. He just seems like he falls really flat in the jungle. So if I had to say he was like actually bad at something, he's definitely bad at jungling right now.
Oh yeah,
agreed.
I think something that's going to be interesting to see because of that, like, because you can keep the blood well up. I think you're going to see people figure out how to play Aatrox, and then he's going to be good. And then I think people are going to realize, oh, I can just watch and see when his blood well is going to be full, because it goes up by a fifth. It's kind of like Rengar, like old Rengar, when you could see it quickly, like, oh, he's about to have a double Q, and I'm going to die real quick. I think it's going to be very easy to see that coming up and be like, oh, okay. Even though it's like, it's so weird that you have like your Q and your E can get 40%, but then you have to potentially whack on people with your W passive dealing damage for a while, or wait till your Q and your E come back up again, which is kind of brutal if you don't get that in the middle of a team fight. So that ultimate is, like Pun says, really key.
So one of the things worth noting is that out of the jungle, Sean was maxing W. And what I'm looking at kind of suggests that for sure out of top lane, the E max is the way to go. And even out of the jungle, it looks like everybody is finding the most success maxing E first. You still start with W out of the jungle, but neither of them, receive neither W nor Q receive priority over E at a certain point. So
I think that might be because you're getting a 4-second difference between E cast from levels 1 to 5. Q gets
for sure.
E
is really good now.
No, but I'm saying because it gives you get a better window. Like, you have a smaller window that you're not able to activate your passive, because you have you get more uptime on your abilities from maxing E, which gives you more blood fill. Whereas W doesn't increase as you skill; it doesn't increase the amount of blood well fill you get.
Which does make me wonder if Warrior is the better enchantment for them to go. I mean, I know Aatrox loves attack speed, but with damage still, like, E scales well, and then there's other scaling with attack damage and everything. But then beyond that, cooldown reduction playing such an important role for your ability uptime and thus blood well uptime, it sort of seems like Warrior is a really... To me, it seems like a really logical pick out of the jungle, but again, all the stats are showing people going for Blood Razor. So
it's because people are looking at old builds, and Blood Razor is terrible. And Warrior, like we tried to argue this with Sean on Monday. We said you should try Warrior, and he was very stubborn and tried Blood Razor and Cinderhulk in his 2 games, which I admire the Cinderhulk pick, not because I think it might be the best one, but because it was at least experimenting and not sticking with Blood Razor. I think Warrior will be, if jungle even works for Aatrox, Warrior would be the one. But I think that top lane, I think needs to be his home.
Yeah, I do agree there. I think he is just, he doesn't give you anything out of the jungle that you're not going to find better from a different champion. Whereas out of top lane, like he kind of turns into that long-term, like, type of brawly bruiser and everything. Like he's going to last a lot longer in fights than you might be used to out of your typical top laner. So at least he's filling a niche there. But out of the jungle, he doesn't do anything unique.
And Todd, this is probably directed mostly at you. I think that Aatrox might come into play more if he ends up being a solid counter to like a meta top laner. Is there anyone that you can think of right now that he might be able to? I guess I don't have one in mind. I'm actually just asking.
I think he could be good against Darius. I think if you use his Q well and you go in, so there's that delay when Darius uses his Q, right? If you take advantage of that and you engage in that window to knock Darius up and then maybe go all in, I think that could be one example of a matchup that he might be favorable, especially since Darius is so execute oriented, and I feel like his passive just straight counters that. And that's just one example off the top of my head. It's hard to say for sure because I haven't really had a chance to play it yet. But I definitely see where he could have tools to deal with some of the common meta top laners.
The conversation starters look to be like Fiora, Riven, Camille, Renekton, and I guess Gangplank as far as who are the most common picks up there.
I'd say Camille. He could definitely fight because she's like an all-in character, but Aatrox is just that. He's like an all-in character too, right? So anybody who wants to get up in his face.
So if he ends up being able to deal with Camille, I kind of feel like that's a really
that might be
deal.
early to say, but when I think about like how the dynamic works, he's a character, or Camille's a character who's melee, who has to go in and like wants to burst you down, and if she doesn't, like her extended fight's like not that great. Aatrox is somebody who's gonna, if you don't kill him all the way, he's going to just always win that sustained fight.
So something to keep in mind with Aatrox, though, is that he's probably the squishiest top laner. I haven't actually looked up Fiora's armor, so I've been doing while we were talking to make sure. No, Fiora is just a tiny bit squishier than he is, but still, Camille has more armor and about the same base health. Garen has significantly more health and armor. Renekton's still has more, but still about the same. So he's on the weaker side of all those early trades, going into Darius or doing shit. I never realized until just now that Garen has 27.5 base armor and 616 base health, which is a fucklock. But it makes sense.
But his per level is horrible.
It's really
That's
bad.
because you got W.
Right.
Yeah, but
anyway, he's got 24.4 base armor with 580 life, so he's on par with any of the other fighters like Camille and Fiora. But like Renekton has a stun and can just, you can stun and walk out, and Aatrox can't really do too much for you or do too much against that. He has no wave clearing until he gets Tiamat. So it's hard to say. Maybe you play relatively passively with poking with Blade, and then you try to all in with a proc of Bloodwell and Bloodthirst, but then again, I'm not an Aatrox player, so I don't think he, like in professional play, for example, I don't think he counters any of them by any means. He might be able to survive, but what does he bring that anybody else does?
His numbers might not be there yet, but just his play pattern. He's the type of character who, like, if he survives the burst, he doesn't die after that. And then those 1v1 scenarios. So that's why I said Camille. And that's why I say Darius, people like that. Like I say, he may number wise, he may not be there yet, but if he were, or if he, or if people figure out the best way to play him, then I think he could have, good matchups in those examples.
And I guess the other thing has to be, like, people are still figuring out Warlords Bloodlust versus Fervor of Battle. And, like, both of those masteries, at least on paper, appeal to him in different ways. I'm inclined to think he's better off going Fervor of Battle, but I'm not an Aatrox player, so maybe there's something about that big 50% lifesteal spike that's really, really appealing to Aatrox. I guess he's the drain tank and that type of stuff. But it just sort of seems like, no, if you're going to sit there and swing and auto attack, just get the bonus damage to do more, do more per auto attack, especially with the way his even his W scales with attack damage.
Oh, and also the way he's been building lately, it's usually 1 or 2 lifesteal items. We're seeing a lot of Bork and Hydra, and then he just kind of goes tank. So the Fervor gives him a little bit of extra stats later in the game when he's kind of getting on the back line.
Me personally, I feel like Bork and Hydra back to back is kind of a mistake. I mean, you don't really have any penetration there. I mean, if he's diving the back line, yeah, but he seems like, again, he's one of those characters that is going to be going for the sustained fights. He's probably fighting the front line more than the back line.
Mm-hmm.
Are we looking at him wrong, and maybe he should be played out of mid lane more like an assassin?
I'll do it. I mean, I'm
just honestly,
I'm gonna do really bad with it
because given how quickly he could get to the back line and that type of stuff, and then he's not suffering the same type. I mean, he's in and then he's committed to the fight, but he's also coming back to life.
I think
the problem with playing him.
I'm sorry. I think some of his base stats are too low, and he has no. I guess he has no like super reliable wave clear besides E, and he just gets poked out by being a melee champion.
Yeah, the problem with like a mid lane Aatrox here would be one, he can't lane, and even into some of the melees, he would still get pushed out by things like Zed, Talon.
Sure, I mean,
he roams a lot
more
too.
But...
I mean, honestly, I think anytime Aatrox lands the knockup from Q and gets a favorable beginning of the fight off, I think that really makes or breaks whether or not he can win a matchup. Sure. Missing that Q is probably all the difference it takes to go from winning to losing.
I agree with that.
It's like Xin Zhao like eing in if you could miss it. Because it's just the same idea of like doing nothing, and then you're like, well, I'm exposed now and got nothing out of this.
Yeah, if you ever played a character like Trinity, even like you dash in with Trinity, but you don't make it to melee range, well, what can you do? Nothing. So that's it.
It is a little disappointing that ability can't be used more frequently. I mean, they would have to change it in some way because it would be just overpowered, but given that it's his most fun ability, like the most fun ability on his kit, that dive in is pretty cool. It's disappointing you can't use it too often.
I'd just like to see a little bit of a range increase on it. I feel like the range is a little low. You can increase the cooldown a bit if you'd like to make up for the fact that it gets a little wider, but that range is a limiting factor when it comes to some of those team fights.
Are you talking the distance that he travels or the range of the knock-up and
the
impact,
distance
I guess?
that he can travel to get a knock-up. It is a pretty small radius, all things considered. Even if it like, it'd be too powerful to add to a base skill. But even if it's increasing the range by a slight bit every time you put a point into it, but that's probably too powerful for a 1 to 16 or 1 to 18 skill to have.
It definitely becomes his max.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that with Zach. So.
Well, I guess there is Zach that does have that. So I mean, it is possible to put that in there. I mean, it's something you learn to work around. It's something you learn to use, but I think just a little bit of extra range on that does make people kind of turn an eye at him to want to play him more often. So, and probably something easy to forget is that he is gaining life back with his W still. So, it'll be interesting to see. It'll just be interesting to see how people continue to play him at this point. I still think that he's hard to play. And that he's hard to play, and that you're relying on an opponent not understanding how he plays right now, and then in a couple weeks you're relying on the person to know how to play Aatrox.
I'm laughing because we spent like so much of Tuesday basically just shitting on this champion, and then all of a sudden Wednesday came in and the tone of the conversation changed, and we're like, well, I guess it's, maybe it's this problem or that problem and everything, and it's not as bad as we thought. I mean, that's why I'm thinking back to after our games Monday and then, most of yesterday where it was just like, no, he's garbage, I mean, it was all of us. It wasn't just Adam.
No. Yeah, no, I'm in that boat.
That's because we watched Sean play Jungle Aatrox, and Jungle Aatrox is garbage for reasons that we listed before. Let's move on and talk about Lucian. And then we can talk about Warlords of Blade of the Road Kings. They all go together. Lucian in this patch to get those changes. And I've played Lucian. I've only been able to play Lucian twice because, again, we were at PAX, so I haven't really had too much of a chance to be able to play this game. But I like the direction that Lucian is headed in right now, and I do think that he has that skill ceiling that'll be harder to reach for some people. I think he's in a really good spot with the items that are available to him.
I think the funny thing is that like they didn't really, in my opinion, raise the skill ceiling with this. They just made it easier to get there by making him smoother as you go across the game. Well, I mean, the W isn't based on level, but the Q firing faster as you get higher and higher level.
Yeah, that raises the skill ceiling because you are increasing, because that's firing more quickly, so you have more time to move around and you have more time to use your abilities. Like to rapid fire with attack speed all of your abilities, you can get what is it, the 5-piece combo off in a matter of seconds, but you have to be quick about auto attacking.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like they marginally raised the skill ceiling.
I like scaling.
Scaling.
Scaling's a better way of saying it in just one word.
They marginally raised the skill ceiling, but they increased the reward greatly for hitting that skill ceiling.
Yeah, definitely. Because Dom, we played him.
Yeah, you were in a fucking 1v2, you got the double kill, and then you ended that game saying, I still think Lucian's bad.
I think I said while I was getting a double kill that Lucian, this is terrible, but he's not terrible. I still think he's this. It's not that the changes are nice. I think it's more that MF and Jin and Varus got hit in the dick, so now Lucian just kind of pops up like, oh yeah, Lucian, he's still there. He's still pretty good.
Which is totally fine. I mean, that is totally an okay thing to happen in the game. Other champions get their legs cut off, and then these champions that were standing behind them are able to step on the mat and actually contest with all the other AD carries that are powerful right now.
Like, when I think about it, I do kind of like that there's basically two ways to go about it. You can either pick one champion and always be good at that champion, irrespective of what's going on in the game, like our main man Todd and his love for Garen. Or you can basically roll with whatever champion is really strong within the context of the meta, like Adam did with Jhin all last year. But like either way, you're rewarded for being good at the game, because if you are good with one champion, irrespective of the conditions, then like you are good at the game. If you are good enough at adapting your play to whatever it is the champion that is most powerful, does best, then again, you are being properly rewarded for figuring out how to adjust to the conditions. If you sit and bitch and complain because the OP champion that you liked playing got nerfed and everything, and that's the problem most people run into. Or you sit and you're really, really stubborn because you don't want to, you like playing a certain champion, but the champion struggles in this meta, and instead of adapting what you do, your solution is to do what you've always been doing and then bitch about it. That's kind of where the majority of the player base actually ends up falling, is sort of grinding their heels in and not wanting to make the necessary adjustments they need to in order to be successful.
The problem go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, on the topic of Lucian, I'm not much of an AD carry player, but I think it's a testament to how detrimental cast times are to characters. Historically, Riot has always added cast times on abilities they felt like would be broken without it. And I think, it was a pretty marginal, reduction on cast times on two of his abilities that seems to have really skyrocketed his not strength, but his playability in the later stages of the game. And I think that I can name 3 or 4 characters off the top of my head that if their cast times weren't as restrictive as they are, I feel like they'd be a lot stronger. Garen might be my number one example.
Even Tom Kench, remember they added a brief just a very, very minor increase to his Q, and that really brought him back into line. Back in line, I guess.
I guess my point is that it was really cool that they made this change as opposed to something else, and I sort of hope in the future they'll consider looking at cast times again as a possible avenue for balancing, not just for this character but for others too.
I like that. I like looking at those little tweaks, like cast times or auto attack times, or whatever it may be, because, again, since we're talking about Lucian, they made the W animation smoother. There was a lot of times you could get locked up in the animation of trying to auto attack after you cast W. and now you're able to W and then get those 2 auto attacks off and continue your combo. And that would hamstring a lot of players from being able to play Lucian well. And I still noticed that the animation, I don't know how to call it. It's just like this weird lockup. You cast W and your character stands there and doesn't auto attack, and you have to issue the auto attack to force Lucian to do that. He doesn't just automatically do it if you right click. Does that make sense?
It's almost like Riven combos, right? Where you have to like immediately move after your Q to get the auto off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to issue a command in between auto attacking to get that quick combo off. So you have
That's
to
exactly how Riven plays.
Or Renekton, where you're activating Hydra to interrupt his W animation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you can do it with a couple of Jace's combos too.
And they tried to smooth that out this last patch, and it worked really well. And so that adding that Q time works. That is great for his mid to late game as well, because he's able to continue his combo more quickly. And if I remember correctly, it's a 5-piece combo, right? Because it's dash Q, W, dash Q.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think it's a 5-piece combo you can roll on him, and there's only like a 1-second delay in between the last dash and the last Q, or whatever it may be. There's a 1-second delay somewhere in there, but it's a really fast combo you can pull off, and you have to pull it off in that order, or else you are losing DPS.
I don't look into combos anymore after I looked up the combos for Ryze before that one game I played on him, so I'm never gonna do that again.
And then you'll never play Ryze again.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point.
So are we rushing Blade of the Ruin King, Ghostblade, Triforce? I see. Yes, Essence Reaver.
Essence Reaver. I like Essence Reaver a lot because the CDR is super important, especially when you start lacing these abilities together. Because like your 5-piece is great, but if you have 0 CDR, it doesn't do as much. So I think you're either going Triforce or you're going Essence Reaver first. I prefer Essence Reaver because crit scales better the later the game goes on. So he doesn't have that like drop off.
I did the Triforce Blade of the Ruin King build.
I did too.
I didn't like it.
It's okay. Like when you get Triforce and Bork. Yeah, when you get Triforce and Bork, you feel fantastic. But then it's like,
but until you have both of those items, or
until you have both of those, it's like, and then after that, it's like,
yeah. Even then, even to get both the items, it's kind of like, irrespective of both the items, you don't do as much damage as you expect to do. You need. I've
never been that big a fan of Trinity Force on him, because like you're kind of just doubling down on damage because you cast spells instead of doing damage through your spells in addition to your auto attacks.
Also, since you're rapid firing his spells so quickly, you generally only get a Sheen proc or 2 in the entire rotation, rather than getting it on like every single ability like some other champions, like Ezreal.
Humorously, the argument for Triforce first build on him is because you're weaving 2 to 3 Sheen procs in through your combo, and
true.
And that's like more or less early game before the Q gets so low. The Q cast time gets so low that you are getting 2 to 3 procs in. And the other argument is that if you pick up a Sheen, you are third healthing somebody with just a Q auto attack proc in.
No, Sheen's a super good laning item, and there's no arguing that. I'm just saying, like, later on, it's like, all right, I EQ WE'd. All right, I got 1 Sheen proc out of it. Nice.
Right. I still like the U moves, Rush, because I like the armor penetration on him. I like the extra movement speed, to be able to move around. I know he's really mobile.
I'm less big on it now, considering the other options. I mean, yeah, if you still go lethality, like if you go like Cleaver, Ghostblade, your art is all physical damage now, and it doesn't scale off attack speed when that got changed. So you can just literally hit R and chunk somebody for like 2,000 HP if you go lethality.
Statistically.
I think the combo of Bork and Ghostblade look really strong together, to be honest.
The old Twitch build.
Statistically, Bork is the best.
Yeah, but
look, I understand that a lot of it's conditional and everything. I'm just looking at the stats. And Lucian is such a highly picked champion that these stats are actually useful to look at and talk about. Mm-hmm. Statistically, Bork is the best rush item for him.
And he
I just don't like getting Bork that early because its impactfulness is a lot less when the tanks don't really have their HP items yet.
You would be surprised how much your damage you're dealing against somebody who still has a relatively low amount of HP.
Yeah, you don't need as much
8% of somebody with 1,500 HP is actually still quite a lot of damage.
And you're also losing out on the CDR by going Borg too, so which I think is more important.
Cool. I had a maybe good segue.
Cool.
And this
the good old
well,
Mitch segue.
no one's
Cool.
going with anything here. Actually, this is not going to be a horrible segue.
Now that you've gone over it 5 times, yeah.
Okay, one more time segue. I was thinking with Lucian being kind of like the hyper mobile AD carry, is there, and this is probably going to be a resounding no, any reason you might want to ever pick Warlords Bloodlust over Fervor on him?
No.
I thought so. See, it's the move speed is the thing that intrigues me more than the lifesteal. I know that he gets all of his passive shots off, which helps build Fervor, and that's kind of, it seems like the slam dunk mastery to go for. But the new Warlords, like giving that extra movement speed with how much he's moving around already, I didn't know if there was any argument to be made for it.
I personally don't like the new Warlords right now. I think it's a great laning mastery if you're playing something that needs to, regen life, like maybe a Cogmaw, for example, because I usually stay in lane longer than that. But as we move into the mid and late game, Warlords is usually used before you're able to get that lifesteal off anyway. So as a whole, I don't think Warlords is that great to use, so not necessarily, because you should be trying to go all in at any point in time with Lucian. If you're not walking on a lane with a kill, you are essentially behind the other AD carry, because most AD carries are scaling into late game better than Lucian does. I'm looking forward to the changes. There's a PvE change where Warlords will now scale off your total attack damage, and I'm looking forward to that.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I need to see these.
No, okay, so don't read too much into that.
It's 5 to 45% lifesteal based on attack damage.
Basically, that is so that it no longer interacts with certain on-hit abilities, and also things like Sheen. Whereas lifesteal currently does work with that. When changing it to just attack damage means that, like Fiora or probably Nasus and that like those types of champions don't get this extra benefit, like huge amount of lifesteal from Warlords. If that goes through, so we'll talk about that later. But so that it's basically just to bring it in line, I think, for more of the edge case champions.
Is that a total or a bonus ratio?
I think total AD.
I think it's total.
Ooh, it'll be good on people like Darius then.
Yeah, when he procs passive.
Well, just because he's like #1 AD in the game off the bat.
Total.
Yeah, no, his
And
base
it's also
stats are
amplified
really
by critical strikes.
Oh, I misunderstood what you guys were saying. I thought there was like a cap for how much AD would affect the percentage you got, but I understand now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's just so that weird outlier cases don't get a whole bunch of fucking lifesteal.
You heal
if you time it properly.
You heal for 5 to 40% of your total attack damage amplified by critical strikes, meaning it becomes better early and a better laning mastery, as well as a better sustained mastery late. But still, you have to walk around to gain that Warlords back. So it just becomes a really good laning / sieging mastery, and Fervor becomes your all-in mastery at that point.
It also I'm not sure if lifesteal factors in post armor reduction or not, or post armor damage or not.
Yeah, it does. It's based on how much damage you is actually dealt. So this
would be a buff to that, because you're healing for a percentage of your total attack damage as opposed to the damage you actually deal. So that could be even more.
I couldn't find that. I recall reading different things, and I hope Todd's right. And because
either way, it's more early. It's way more early.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Warlords. Blade of the Ruin King, I guess. We can talk about that as well. We've seen a spike in Cogmaw and Twitch as AD carries and solo queue becoming very good with rushing this item first. I'm a very big fan of the new Blade of the Ruined King right now.
See, surprisingly, when I've been seeing Cogmaw, it's been a lot of Ginsu's Hurricane with.
That is most
That's
played
the old
build.
one.
That is the most. Ginsu's Hurricane is.
That's
what
what I've been seeing people play on streams though too. Like a lot of the high elo players have been just going Ginsu's, and they're when they get Ginsu's, they're like 1v3 on Cogmaw.
Yep.
So
to be
it's
fair,
really good.
To be fair, the pro players don't necessarily adapt to the meta very quickly either.
Nope,
and it still is strong.
Oh no! No, it's still really good is what I'm saying. Is I think people just kind of forgot Kog'Maw was around. And again, with the nerfs to some of these laning champions, Kog'Maw gets to sit in lane, get his Rage Blade, and then he just kind of pops off now. Especially with Lulu popping up as like the go-to support. Lulu has always been really, really good.
I like it because E and W have relatively low mana costs, so it's kind of easy to drop an E and then start poking people with W. And if you have Lulu on top of that to add help picks to you as well, he becomes a poke champion in lane. And like you said, a lot of people with Kog'Maw forgot that he existed, and always there is this long-standing misnomer that Kog'Maw has to be played passively in lane, and that he has to farm up until 6 items to be good. Right, and it's nothing like that. Kog'Maw can be a level 1, level 2 bully very, very easily. You just have to know when to press W. It's just a timing.
I think one thing that's interesting with we talked about this when Blade just got changed, and I really like the switch over from it being it's hard to classify it as an attack speed or attack damage item prior to this change, and now it's quite clearly like it's more damage. You're getting 40 plus the passive, and I think that Bork as a first item was and still kind of is a little bit weird because it's kind of focusing on a lot of different things as opposed to getting a heavy AD item or like a BF sword and then going into your heavy attack speed item to synergize with it that also usually has crit. Or where were you supposed to go with Bork? And so I kind of like it settling as this third item that I think is what we kind of thought it was going to settle as. I think maybe last Wednesday on the podcast. Yeah. That I think that it's going to be such a good follow-up, like you said, it's not as good early because of the damage it won't do. It's still helpful, mind you, but I think that settling in that third role after you've already got a heavy hitter attack damage item and then attack speed and crit from something else, which seems to be the Hurricane is like what everyone's picking up. I think it'll settle in as a very good item. Does Bork apply to the Hurricane bolts? I feel like it doesn't. Yes. Does it? Holy shit.
Yup.
I mean, it'll be at reduced capacity.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that's humorously, Callista has seen a win rate increase in this patch.
Yeah, she is sandwiched.
Well, Callista's very good at Bork. Yeah, she's super good.
Right between Draven and Lucian.
Can we not see her? I really don't want Callista back in the game. Mostly because I saw Adam play it the last time he played it, and
I really don't see any reason to play Callista over any of the other champions right now. It's kind of a niche pick, as it is.
She's pretty disgusting when she's good, dude. She's like a top 5 annoying hero when she's strong.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just don't think she does. Well, I'll take that back. All the other champions have been nerfed, so maybe she does start to slowly come back because of all of the other champions nerfed.
I think when it's not a tank heavy support meta, she doesn't do as well because you're throwing in like a squishy target potentially, or I guess saving that support that's caught out. But like her ultimate just I think isn't nearly as good when you have mage supports pretty much in every game.
I'm increasingly of the mind that AD carry is as far as champion diversity goes, like it's in a really good spot where you can make a pretty good argument to pick a lot of different champions at any given time. Taking kind of I guess Urgot and Corki out of the conversation just due to how those champions. Corki's more of a mid laner right now. I know. And Urgot is Urgot. You're making a very calculated decision to play him based on what the rest of your team has or something, but the rest of it, you can make a really good argument in a lot of different ways for any of these champions. And that's a really good state for things to be. There's always going to be champs that do rise to the top, but that doesn't mean, even if Kog'Maw is the winningest champion, that doesn't make Misfortune a fundamentally bad pick,
I love that Urgot is not even on Champion GG's list anymore as an AD carry.
He doesn't get enough play. He's Aatrox now. He doesn't get enough play in any of the other regions to get data.
He's still on Lolalytics. In fact, he's above Corki and Varus.
Varus got hit that... Whoa, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he got hit hard by other nerfs, and then like the Deathfire... nerfs to his own kit, I guess, were the big things, but the Deathfire touch stuff also like fucking crushed him.
Oh, I actually wanted to talk about that real quick. Just bounce back to Warlords, because Adam, you might have an opinion on this. Jhin Would he like Warlords, given that he gets such a ridiculously high AD? With the percentage of AD nerfs to Deathfire Touch, in addition to Warlords.
Jhin plays too far back to use Warlords effectively. Like, yes, you could potentially gain a fuckload of life, especially next Warlords, where it's affected by critical strike and his forced shot could gain a ton. And maybe when that change comes in, but right now it doesn't do well. You might as well just stick with DFG or Thunderlords if you want to become a lane bully, or DFT.
Cool.
I could actually see next patch him running Warlords. It's just really weird because I unfortunately didn't get to listen to the patch rundown episode, but when you remove 20% damage from somebody's kit by just nerfing a mastery, it's really weird to try to go find another mastery to make up for that damage, because there's nowhere to make up for it anywhere in any of the trees. So, yeah, rip Jhin for a little while. Maybe they can give him back his ultimate slow, forever slow. That'd be great.
He was the best AD carry for a year and a half.
What?
Yeah,
it's okay to dethrone somebody after a year? See, I'm just gonna be that guy, Dom. I'm just gonna be that guy.
To be fair, I went through that love and loss with Corki over the past 4 years, so it's been a roller coaster for me too, man.
Jace is still really good, so I'm okay.
Yeah. Hey, Ari is really good right now. You can just keep playing her. She's been good.
I've been playing
Anivia.
I like Anivia now.
Ari's never.
You need to be playing Orianna.
I do need to play Orianna.
Has Ari ever been a below 50% win rate solo queue pick in the last 4 years?
I mean,
no, she's always
maybe one off.
I think when I don't remember if this is going to be so off track. I think when they changed the range on her Q, because it used to be a lot longer, I don't remember if they immediately also added her speed boost at the same time with Q. And I think if they didn't, that probably plummeted her win rate.
Ari is the champion. I would tell anybody trying to figure out mid lane. I would tell them to play her. Teaches a lot of good habits.
That's what
doesn't have any I mean, she may not be the best at any single thing, but she's also not the worst at anything. Doesn't have glaring weaknesses, and just good champion.
So
hey, it's Stoneborn.
I was gonna say Stoneborn Pact.
So
good
I really like this mastery. I like it for the big reason being that it no longer has a downside to it that that usually came with the old Bond of Stone, where you were taking damage because somebody else was taking damage. And I guess, yes, that was a benefit to that person, but the reality was always that just by standing, being around and not necessarily being involved in the fight, you were still taking damage, and that has a shitty feel to it. The big thing that I have learned through running this mastery is that you have to really pay attention to what your AD carry is doing, because outside of the level where Todd is at, where people actually pay attention to the masteries and the shit and where they can find a little bit of an advantage somewhere, most people are going to be tunneling on their specific target, and so that doesn't mean they're going to be paying attention to the enemy that has a rune over their head and everything, even if it means they would end up with a bunch of healing coming their direction. So the onus is on the support to make sure that you are getting onto the same target that the AD carry is focusing on. Generally speaking, that's a good rule of thumb anyway, but there were cases where you might not be wanting to do that, and if you are running Stoneborn Pact, that needs to become a higher consideration in your head. And for some supports, it takes or for some support players, it's going to definitely take a mindset shift. There we go. But yeah, just playing with it on Monday and playing a few other games with it, I would keep applying it to targets and then thinking or even saying, yo, fucking attack that guy because you're going to heal. And then the AD carry would go and do something else for whatever reason. And that's when I made the connections. No, you have to be on this, just get on top of the same target as the AD carry, even if you think someone else is the better target of opportunity.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, me personally, I'm not blown away by the new mastery. I think it's kind of underwhelming. I don't really play anybody who can really appreciate it, but when I see it in my games, it just doesn't feel impactful enough to me. But that's just the way I feel about it personally.
I don't think anybody is ever going to notice it outright. I noticed it playing with Adam, but I was explicitly paying attention to whether or not it was benefiting him. And I think it did swing a fight or two in our favor, and so that's kind of a win in that regard. But it's not the type of thing that people are going to easily notice because they're not directly, applying the healing and accounting for it.
I think one thing that could be this is something that's going to be unfortunate that we don't have yet. Like if you watch LCS, you know how they have those, like, after a team fight, they'll show like damage dealt in a team fight. If you were somehow able to like see over the last 30 seconds or over the last team fight how much you'd healed from something, I think it'd be very curious to see how much you actually get. But as it is, it's difficult to know with the current information you can get to yourself in the middle of the game. Like you might be able to see at the end of the game, healing given. Cool. That's a number, but I don't know when or where or how. Like that, and even then, the way that the stat is structured, like it's just healing done. You don't know. It could have been from lifesteal. It could have been from a lot of other stuff. You're not going to know where the breakdown was. So yeah, I wish they would give more detailed reporting, but
I like the idea behind these masteries, but like Todd said, you don't really notice it, and even if the person is barreling down on you, you don't know exactly how much you're going to heal. Or if you are even going to heal. Excuse me. At any point in time, through Warlords or whatever it may be, and they all just kind of seem to be there, and it's happenstance, and it's hard to play around at any point in time. If a Hecarim's chasing you down and you have a Warlords proc plus Stoneborn Pact and you're shooting at him, you don't know that is happening in the midst of the team fight, so you can't make calculated decisions to turn around to use it very well, or it's very, very hard to do that.
Couldn't the same be said for Dangerous Game?
Which one's Dangerous Game? The one that you do more
you
damage
heal when you get a kill. No, you heal when you get a kill.
Yeah, the Dangerous Game also isn't a major keystone.
Yeah. Okay, fair point.
Right.
I think there's one thing that I brought up a long time ago, which was the like not that I need League of Legends to be filled with medals like Call of Duty or Halo, but like the protector kind of like thing as opposed to an assist where like your shield saved somebody from lethal damage or that heal saved them from lethal damage. Like the only time you're going to notice this is when you survive a fight with like 10 health and you're like, oh yeah, I saw the rune during that fight. I must have lived because of that. That's the only time, unless you like have like they need some metric. Otherwise, people just like, unless you go back and watch your videos, you're not going to have any clue. And that would be one way to like somehow show, hey, this is impactful and it's doing something for you in the game besides just way more post-game work than you might be willing to do.
I can see them. I think the flat 5% bonus health is staying as it is. They're not going to give more than that. But I can see them extending the duration of the rune like a second longer. And I can see them bumping either the flat heal or the, or both parts of the heal up a little bit more. I mean, I think there are things they can do to make this feel more impactful to people.
What if we did like a 5-man Protect the Cog comp, but instead we put like Mundo with Stoneborn Pact, Nunu with Stoneborn Pact, and like 2 other people with Stone. I know that you heal off of the strongest one at a time, but like you're like giving the most healing possible plus like random shields
Lulu, and then
Lulu mid lane. Yep.
He says protect the cog, and then he picks a Nivea and walls you off from the rest of your team and says, fuck you.
Hey, I haven't done that yet. So.
Keyword yet.
It's going to happen. I'm going to pull a McLaren if anyone was watching back in season 1.
No. Hey, listen, I know that it's the end of the show, but I have Power Rangers to watch. Because the Twitch Presents Power Rangers Marathon is on, and I have been doing nothing but watching Power Rangers at work for the past 2 days.
Have you been putting on subtitles and then just like screen capping things? Because that's what I've been doing.
No, but I should be. I have been in the chat
fantastic.
going blip, 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 blip.
Yep.
And is that like in preparation for the movie?
But hey,
is it in prep for the movie or what? Why?
Yeah, it's all. They're doing a 17-day marathon, displaying all 831 episodes of Power Rangers.
Correct.
Wild, dude.
Every iteration of it?
Yes, all 831 episodes.
All English iterations.
Right. And I've already missed the White Ranger coming because he was supposed to come in 5 episodes as of 5 o'clock, and they've probably definitely gone through like 10 or 15 more episodes since then.
You can go back.
No, it's not the same. I didn't get to experience it with Twitch chat. I just wanted to experience it.
Also on Netflix.
Adam, go put on your VCR and hook it up, and you can go record it for yourself.
No, fuck you. I wanted to experience it with Twitch chat. Fucking Twitch chat's
you
amazing
can.
Watching this.
They still do that. You can go back and watch like with timestamps.
No, I wanted to type in Twitch chat. I wanted to be one of the horde.
Oh
Hey,
my God!
Listen, speaking of the Horde, we have reviews to read, and we have a lot of them because a lot of you, as of episode number 420, have come and given us what the fuck are they called? Feedback.
Reviews.
Thank you.
Giving us
Adam,
interviews.
you said the word
PAX.
earlier.
We interviewed you at PAX. You don't
Yeah,
remember?
Give me shit. This is great. Yeah, this is great pod. Yeah, fuck you guys. Oh, Dom's just gonna leave. He doesn't want to hear the reviews. Dom's just gonna walk away. All right, fine. You know what? Ray? Dom didn't want to hear this. He didn't want to hear that there are many League of Legends podcasts out there. And without a doubt, Trinity Force is the best one going for a long time. They give great advice on both macro and the specific level. I give them full credit for getting me to silver finally last year after a couple of seasons played stuck in bronze. Thank you, Adam and company. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
We got 4 stars for making really bad weed jokes.
What weed jokes? When did we even do that?
That's probably why. So
because we did make them, or because they were poor.
Both, probably.
Okay.
We didn't have Wrecker on.
It's hey, Miles. It's like a month till 420. Is that even a day we record? Because that would be perfect. Not that
I can look.
I have a calendar, and I will check.
Oh no, 420 is a Thursday.
Thursday. Maybe we'll do it. We'll record a special Thursday weed-centric episode for you.
If we do that, will you give us 5 stars, Miles? You know what? Email us and let us know. Dragon Guy, who was on the podcast a week ago or so, he writes, one of the most informative, entertaining podcasts for League of Legends. They've got a good, diverse group of people to talk about champions, changes to the game, and general in-game mechanics and strategies. They also have other podcasts on the side for the professional scene and beginners, as well as other popular games like Overwatch. Give them a chance and you won't be disappointed. Of course, Dragon writes that. I mean, he was on. Right? Nice Guy 420 writes, it's disappointing. Wait, the show is great at disappointing me. Yet he gave it 5 stars. It's just like Dom. Dom is great at disappointing me as he walks away when I'm talking about it.
Oh, come on.
Episode 420.
That is not the most disappointing thing I've done.
The hooks that hit, more like the names that miss. Such a missed opportunity for a great goof about my thing is in the way, so I can't see what.
But that good green.
Oh, the good green. Or even jokes about playing with the word hooks, such as hook, line, and sinker, or getting hooked on T-Force. I was going to give you 1 to 10, but I thought that since I'm a nice guy, I'll help you guys out. So here you go. Enjoy your A+, nerds.
Wow.
1 out of 10 would be rough. Like, a half a star.
Yeah, right? 50 Shades of Ponophobia. I love hearing the crispy voice of Adam, Chira, Dom, Serial Punch, and the guest stars, though I long for the day when Talenasty returns. I enjoy every podcast, and they give so much advice for League players, new or old. They all have amazing personalities and great humor. I give the boys 5 stars for great quality and so much info, especially from our boy Skyen.
Yeah.
I got some really long ones coming up here. $5 writes, Adam mentioned leaving reviews in podcast 420. It made me realize that although I've been listening for a couple years, I have never left this show the 5-star review it deserves. Thank you, $5. Today, I'm changing that. This is a great show with great hosts. Their insight has helped me improve my gameplay and experience significantly. On top of that, it is a great source of laughter and entertainment during the work week. I also had the pleasure of interviewing Adam about a year and a half back. I found him to be very personable, and I could tell the passion he has for podcasts and the rest of the T-Force network. If you have read this far, he goes on to say, hey, go listen to all the other shows. If you like those, consider getting involved in the community. It's filled with friendly and helpful people. Keep up the good work, guys. P.S. Screw you, iTunes, for making me write this twice. Lincoln, $5 Anderson.
Wait, you got interviewed?
About a year and a half ago.
Okay.
That's all I got. I don't remember the URL. Honestly, I have no idea. Hey, $5.
I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to listen to you more.
He wants to hear me more. He got to put up with me for a weekend, and now he wants to do more. Bohemia Deer writes, super rad, insightful, and entertaining. Love this podcast. Really has improved how I play after listening to their advice. I love the patch episodes because it has helped me understand the changes better than reading a giant block of text in League. Thank you. That's what we try to do. I will say the one thing that bothers me sometimes, I feel like they don't comment on what others are saying. Fuck you, Bohemian. There, I commented. Sometimes someone will talk for 20 to 30 seconds on a topic. Then there will be a few seconds of silence and someone else will start talking about something they want to say. More interaction between hosts on one thought would be nice. Or at least, yeah, I agree. Haha.
So you mean like my cool segue earlier?
Yes.
That was a great segue.
To be fair, we had been on the same topic for like literally not 20 to 30 seconds, but 20 to 30 minutes because I think that was still on Aatrox and Lucian.
That is all the reviews that we have. You know what? You're right, Serial. That is all the reviews that we have that have been on iTunes. Since the last time we asked, if you would like to leave us a review on iTunes, please do so. We are encroaching on 400, I believe, reviews on iTunes. Or 300. I can't remember which it is, but we are encroaching on quite a number.
If it's 400, if we can get to catch up with the number of episodes we have, that would be pretty cool.
That would be very cool. So I'm going to go watch Power Rangers now and play some video games. But at the same time, watch Power Rangers. So, guys, thank you, everybody, for joining the podcast. and the community and whatever it may be. Guys, we'll be back Monday with a new episode for you. Everybody have a good night.
Watch for PAX videos.
Patch videos.
Later, dogs.